as researchers. So you have to know your channels. You have to talk about your research. You have to do it in an effective way. And we've already mentioned Google Scholar. We've already talked about ORCID as approaches to make sure that people know about you and know about your research. But effective communicators, effective international academics are talking about their work. They're making their work available and accessible to lots of people, and they're doing it using the standard academic social networking platforms, places like ResearchGate, academia, as well as other more standard social networking platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, so on. Do you have these channels for your research group? Are you building a following? Are you quantifying what happens when people engage with your feed, with your content? Researchers are engaging with the public more than ever before, but most of us have no idea how we're actually benefiting the people we interact with. And this is a shame, because researchers are increasingly expected to be able to articulate the value of their research with the public. Why? In order to justify funding and demonstrate the impact of their research. Next time you have to write a grant application, or next time you get interviewed for an academic position, a PhD position, or a postdoc, or a job, it would be so valuable, it would be so excellent if you could talk about your impact in a way that's actually measurable. So many people have read my stuff. So many people have engaged with my website. This is the difference that my research is making. Evaluate your engagement, and you can do it. You can do better. You can communicate more effectively. There are loads of online resources, loads of people providing training, loads of ideas to help you engage your research with people more effectively. And this is important for researchers. Remember the second half of that diagram that I showed you. We're looking for socioeconomic and societal benefits to evaluate your engagement with the public and, of course, with policymakers. This is where your research impact actually lies. Academic plus societal and economic. So what can we do to assess? What can we do to make sure that we're making the biggest difference with our research? This image comes from Kudos, which is a great organization that also provides lots of resources in this kind of area. And you are looking, as a researcher, at the attention, the interest, the desire, and the action that people have when they engage with you as a brand, as a researcher, as a person producing excellent academic work. But are you actually aware of what your assessment of impact is? How many times people share your work? How many mentions do you get? How many clicks? How many views? How many downloads? What level of press coverage? And what kind of citation rate? Most academics are aware of their citation rate at the end of this particular chart, but the rest of this information people tend to have much less idea about. So we're going to show you not just how you can drive up your citations, but also how you can more effectively engage, capacity building, understanding and awareness, economics, environment, health and well-being. Are you aware of how your research makes a difference to the lives of ordinary people? We always ask PhD students who come for interviews in the UK, we ask them, question number one in their PhD interview, how are you going to explain your research project to somebody you've just met on the bus, or to somebody you've just met in the bar? What is it about your research that's important, that's interesting, that's engaging, that anybody could relate to? Try to write down in 1 or 2 sentences before you start your next academic paper write-up. What's the key message? What is the one thing that you want people to get out of reading your academic paper? What's the take-home message, as we say in English. And this will help you to build impact around your research and make people interested in what you're doing. If people are interested in your articles, they're going to read them and then they're going to cite them in an academic context, of course. So impact is so much more than just which journals you get your work published in. It's a journey from the beginning of a research project through to the end, and it's ongoing. And I give you this graphic from a company that I've worked with, Fast Track Impact. They provide training in the UK. They provide training in the UK to help researchers maximize their impact and write reports to the government research assessment exercise. You can think about what's happening with your research over the time of the project, the inputs, the activities, the outputs, the outcomes, and the impacts. And how cool would it be if the next time you write a grant application, you have in that grant application a figure that looks like this? People will see, funding agencies will see that you are thinking about what difference this research is going to make. So very important to think about this. I see we have a question. Will this video be available because I'm having connecting problems? Yes, we will provide everybody with a video recording of this session. So don't worry, you'll get the chance to listen to me shouting at you as many times as you like on repeat in the future. Anyway, design, represent, engage, early impact, reflect, and sustain. These are the steps that you will go through as a researcher and when you put together your next project. And don't forget that engagement, actually involving people in what you're doing, either through social media or through your other kinds of outreach, is a key way to develop early impact, which you then sustain with your other activities, not least of which the final publication that comes out at the end of the day. I give you an example. Writing research papers about tobacco genetics. You could either write and talk about the science, the genetics, the molecular genetics of tobacco. Not a lot of people would be interested in reading that paper. Only the other researchers who work specifically on tobacco molecular genetics. But what about if you broaden the message? What about if you make it bigger and more widely relevant and you talk also about the health benefits? What can you say that's new about the health benefits of tobacco? Because this may be much more interesting to a much wider audience. And by the way, this is also the key to getting your work published in high impact factor international journals, Nature, Science, places like that. You have to sell your work to journals with a clear message that people are going to find interesting, that the editor is going to think, I'm interested in that. I want to read that article. I'm going to send it for peer review. I'm going to give it to the peer reviewers because I think my readers will also be interested in that particular article. It's key. This is the secret to getting your work published in leading international multidisciplinary journals, a clear message that people will find interesting. Also, develop a skill set that not a lot of academics have, and that's talking about your research and telling stories about your research. When you have to give a conference talk or a department talk or talk to somebody that you've just met for the first time at a conference, you can talk to them, you can talk to your audience. It's much more engaging, it's much more easy to follow and easy to understand if you talk about maybe something that happened during the course of your research rather than the actual nuts and bolts of the research itself. Storytelling as a way to get your message across can be really effective as a tool, as a presenting tool that you can develop as an academic to engage with your audience more effectively. Let's think now about how you can boost your citations, how you can maximize your academic citations, how you can get people reading, and how you can get people citing your next academic article. I have some tips, I have some tricks to help you with this. And number one top tip for boosting citations is, of course, choosing your keywords carefully. Make sure your articles are SEO'd, search engine optimized. You will be asked by your journal when you make your submission to put in the title, to put in the keywords, and to put in the abstract.